Hi everyone. Today I want to talk to you about why I support immigration reform. In recent news that we've been seeing, there are too many times where immigrants, along with people who are advocates for immigration reform, or even many people who are U.S. citizens, are being harmed by law enforcement agencies like ICE and dealing with a lot of anti immigrant stigma. I am an American citizen. I've been born in the US for a very long time. I have studied history in my years in my education settings, like elementary school through community college, where I had taken history courses. When I had taken these courses, I have learned how immigrants have worked really hard to help build America, like doing manufacturing, through building other material, working on inventions, and helping our community. Also, in our history, I have learned on how many of these immigrants who came from China, Mexico, or other countries had faced a lot of hardships too for simply just being different. Also, another thing I have learned in history is that around the world there are a lot of oppressive countries where many countries don't respect human rights, including people with disability rights, don't want to give people the option to have freedom of speech or freedom of the press or having basic care like clean water or access to food or even access to health care needs. Also, there are too many times where oppressive countries like to lock up their own people just because they are different or just because they don't like what the government is doing against the people. And also, they don't like people with disabilities. And many times, immigrants, including refugees, work to escape from oppressive countries to come to America because many of them believe that America is a beacon of light, a place where we can work with others without having to worry about facing oppression, being in a community without having to worry about their safety. But it's hard in America with a lot of anti immigrant stigma. Like, for example, whenever the economy is having trouble, people, including politicians, along with the news media, blame immigrants for problems that they didn't cause. When it comes to crime, there are too many times where immigrants are stereotyped as criminals, and many other bad forms of stigma. I have traveled mostly around the United States. I have met many different type of immigrants in places like California, Minnesota, New York City, Florida, whether it is in a blue state or a red state or a small town or an urban area. They have told me many stories about why they want to come to the US. They had told me that they grew up in hardships in countries where they didn't have many rights because they were struggling in navigating an oppression country. And they also want to give a chance to their young children to have an experience where they don't have to worry about oppression, where they can simply just get an education or other opportunities, or even just trying to be part of a community. Recently, on my trip to Minnesota, during my ride in an Uber, the driver was very nice. He had told me a story about how he came to the US from China because he was worried about his son with a disability of being oppressed in China because China doesn't have human rights that are well for people with disabilities. He was telling me many times that he wanted to be in America where he could have his son with a disability be able to get an education, to have better accommodations to assist his disability in education. However, he expressed worry too about dealing with the anti immigration stigma, where people look at him funny, where there are many times people use hateful views against immigrants. I have worked in the food service industry for about 11 years and currently. I have worked with many immigrants, including many students who are on visas, where they work hard during difficult times and navigate in a fast paced environment. We all try to work hard in the food service industry to help improve customer service, to help serve many people who are in need for food. When I work in these job settings, people tell me they simply just want to be helpful to a lot of people, want to figure out how they can contribute to society. But they also tell me that they fear of being oppressed by a lot of anti immigrant stigma. There was one student who I worked with who was on a student visa. She had expressed that she was dealing with a lot of anti immigrant stigma, where she was getting spit at, being hit at, and even having to be worried about law enforcement coming after her just because she is an immigrant and she came from a different country. I have known other people who are immigrants or some dreamers who come to our country, but I won't mention the names because they are worried about being targeted or facing backlash. But many of them tell me that they are simply just want to live in the American dream, where they can help other people, share with people about the cultures of their own backgrounds, to help educate people about the cultures of the world, want to find ways to help build our country, including our community, to be a better place. When I see other news media of immigrants, including U.S. citizens, that are being hurt by ICE or other law enforcement, it breaks my heart too. I cry from the inside. I have seen people being beaten up for simply advocating for immigration reform. It makes me sad seeing how many people who are immigrant advocates or people who are in immigration law are being punished for simply just trying to help immigrants, along with dreamers or refugees, to navigate a complicated judicial system that is broken. I am not a Democrat or a Republican. I am an independent person with a populism, progressive, leaning towards libertarian. What does that mean? I'm a person that believes in the basic fundamental human rights. I believe that human rights, including people with disability rights, needs to be stronger to reduce discrimination or hate. I believe that we need to have universal health care system to help many people with pre-existing conditions or who can't afford health insurance or who struggle with a disability or if they can't find work, get the care that they need. I believe that we need to protect the environment from pollution to help protect many of our future generations, including public lands and safe drinking water. I'm a strong supporter of the idea of having a criminal justice reform to reduce crime, but also to help protect our civil liberties. And also, I'm a strong believer in social justice to improve communities, like having affordable housing, drug treatment programs to assist drug users to get the care they need, having more programs to help the homeless people or people who are poor. And I am a strong supporter of immigration reform. What is that? What does it mean when I say I'm a supporter of immigration reform? I believe that we need to provide extra money for border security, but at the same time, we need to hire more immigrant judges, including lawyers in the immigration law, to help many immigrants, including refugees or people who are seeking asylum from oppressive countries, to get helped. I believe that we need to extend visas to help students come to our country so that they can learn and also help our country. We need to have more programs to help protect dreamers, including refugees who are trying to escape from oppressive countries. Also, on this immigration reform idea that I have, I strongly believe that we need to require law enforcement, including ICE, to go through requirements of going to civics for education, including being educated about the U.S. Constitution, so they won't violate our fundamental civil liberties. Why I mention this idea is because I believe that ICE and law enforcement should follow the rules of not doing unwanted searches without a search warrant. They should not try to detain U.S. citizens without any reasons. They should not be using physical assault on innocent people or nonviolent protesters or even on immigrants, including women along with children. We should also need to require law enforcement, including ICE, to go through training with mental health workers to make sure that they follow the rules properly without violence or brutality. These things sound like they are good ideas, but it doesn't sound good when it comes to the news media or when it comes to too many politicians along with our current president. They would say that this is socialism or that it is a stupid idea. Also, if I've dealt with people who I know or some of my friends tell me that I am simply a retard or a traitor for saying immigration reform is important and that I support it for basically good reasons. I am also a Christian where I try to follow Jesus Christ's philosophy. I'm trying to show compassion and trying to be a human being to many people who are struggling in life through poverty or through oppression, and also many immigrants, including refugees, who are trying to escape from oppressive countries. As a Christian myself, I believe that we need to show compassion, understanding, kindness with critical thinking to immigrants, dreamers, and refugees who try to escape from oppressive country and trying to find a good life in America. I know the world is tough. The news is so depressing to watch when I see many immigrants, including refugees or immigrants or immigrant advocates, and women and children and nonviolent protesters are being brutally attacked by law enforcement, including ICE. It breaks my heart to see how the news media, including our current president, along with many politicians, use a lot of anti immigrant rhetoric and will try to stereotype immigrants as bad people. It breaks my heart too when I know some people who are immigrants closely. I keep thinking to myself every day, I want them to be safe. And also, I pray for many immigrants, dreamers, and refugees, and people who I know that are immigrants that came from other countries, is that I want them to feel safe and try to have human rights, not to be oppressed, to feel okay to be engaged in the community, or to even share culture without feeling ashamed or being scared. If I was a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or a libertarian, I would support immigration reform and the ideas that I have previously mentioned about immigration reform. I know it is not easy for me talking about supporting immigration reform because I dealt many times of being backlash or being talked down by some of my friends, people who I know, including other adults or other people who are very religious, where they call me a traitor, they call me a retard, they call me a socialist, or other mean names just because I support immigration reform. All I can say is to tell myself that I am simply am just a human being. I'm a person that believes in the fundamental rights of human rights, including people with disability rights. I'm a person that believes that immigrants, dreamers, and refugees should deserve to have protection from oppression and from oppressive countries. I'm a person that believes that law enforcement should not use police brutality or violate any civil liberties against immigrants, refugees, dreamers, and especially on American citizens. Also, as a Christian, I Jesus Christ would remind me that it is good for me to be a decent human being, someone who wants to have compassion, understanding, and cares about many immigrants, including refugees and dreamers, when they face hardships in life. And I continue to pray as hard as I can for them to be safe, to be okay during difficult times, and for better protections from oppressive countries. I also have a strong interest in learning history for a very long time. I am very proud to have continued to learn about how immigrants, dreamers, and refugees have worked really hard in life to try to advocate for good common sense ideas on social justice, including human rights, along with people with disability rights, wanting to help improve our community, promoting good ideas about how to make culture a great educational tool, or to help educate people about how they worked hard to overcome many hard obstacles, whether they face oppression or through poverty. History has also shown us that immigration reform is very important in society. It has made us stronger. It has helped us find ways where we can all be innovative on ideas to improve society, where we can offer ideas to have equal opportunity of promoting good educational awareness about culture. I know I may not be perfect speech person about this topic. I work very hard on trying to write this speech as well as I can, but I want to share you some of my insights about why I support immigration reform. To many people who I know that are immigrants or are dreamers or refugees or who I even met during my travel around the United States or who I have not met, I want to send my thoughts and prayers for all of you to be safe without worrying about being oppressed, having a good life, and help find ways to improve our communities, along with sharing your culture without feeling scared. And many of you who are victims of oppression, I want to let you know that I do not support bigotry or hate against immigrants, dreamers, or refugees. I do not condone the actions of law enforcement, including ICE, for violating our fundamental civil liberties on all of you, especially on U.S. citizens, including on immigration reform advocates, and also on immigration lawyers, too. Again, I am not a politician. I am not a lobbyist. I am not a Democrat. I am not a Republican. I am an American citizen. I am a Christian. And I'm a Michigander. And I'm an independent populism leaning progressive with libertarian views who strongly believe that immigration reform is important in society and that we need to make sure that civil liberties are not weakened and that many of you deserve to have compassion, kindness, and understanding, including many immigrants, refugees, immigration lawyer, and immigration advocates, and U.S. citizens too. I wanted to make this video of my speech about immigration reform because I had seen the news of LA and what's been happening. And I want to make sure that my speech wasn't polarizing or partisan. I believe that this speech is intended for a bipartisanship. It is a human rights issue, it's a civil liberties issue, and it is very important that we do not repeat the same mistakes in the past in history. We need to move forward in a society where we can accept immigrants, refugees, and dreamers, and many people who struggle through poverty, including people with disabilities, along with immigrants who struggle with disabilities or medical conditions. We all need to stand together, and I encourage every one of you, including many politicians in both parties and public officials and members of our judicial system, to even advocate for immigration reform immigrants' rights, dreamers' rights, better protection for U.S. citizens along with immigrants to protect their civil liberties from being violated. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me. Again, I'm an American, and I strongly believe that we need to have immigration reform. Thank you for listening.